What is up, you guys? This is JP, and today we're gonna talk about maxing out too often. So, a common theme that I tend to see for people trying to get stronger, and this is actually a pretty good video because I haven't talked about strength specifically in a minute, is especially for beginners and even intermediates, I see this often, is people trying to max out too often. Now, we all want to know where our baseline strength is at for a given lift. Trust me, I want to know. Sometimes I actually haven't tested a max for a good while yet. And I think about it all the time, and I have clients and people that I train that want to know where their strength is at, and they want to test a lot. And as a beginner, you can essentially, due to nervous system adaptation and due to skill acquisition, you're essentially going to be hitting PRs every single week. You're going to hit personal records almost every single workout. But once you get past that initial rapid development of strength, and you're gonna still want to kind of figure out where you're at, with whatever respective if you're trying to get stronger at. But one issue that I see is people want to max out too often. Again, I understand that you want to know where you're at, but you don't want to try maxing out so often that you essentially shooting yourself in the foot. And here are some good reasons why you shouldn't max out so often once you get past that initial beginner stage where you're kind of essentially maxing out every single workout. So the first reason why you should not max out too often once you're past that beginner stage is that the point of you maxing out is you're trying to figure out how strong you actually are. You're trying to say, okay, well, what can I theoretically do on maybe like a perfect day, or what is my actual strength when expressed through a specific exercise? But the issue with that is that when you're testing so often is you're not actually finding that out. Let's just take a regular intermediate lifter, and someone who's having this issue typically isn't gonna be in a program like this, but just for the sake of an example, I'm gonna use this example, but typically it doesn't play out like this. But you take a lifter who's in the middle of a training block, or they're in the middle of, some pretty hard weeks of training, and they're like, let's just, YOLO it and try to hit a deadlift, and let's see how much we can lift today, and let's see what our 1RMs are. The issue with that is you're having fatigue from previous days and weeks that's kind of bleeding over to that day. So when you do this 1RM attempt, you might be seeing how strong you are in that moment, but you're not actually expressing your true strength. This is kind of easier to understand when expressed as a simple equation. You have your actual fitness level, and then you have your actual performance level. Your fitness level is theoretically what you can do on a perfect day where you're not sore, you're not hungry, you're not hot, you don't have any performance anxiety, you have nothing that's bothering you, and on a perfect day what you can lift. Now, your performance is what you actually do, which is affected by everything that I just named. How sore you are, how hungry you might be, how hard or how hot that day is. It's essentially what you actually do and what's expressed in that lift. So any fatigue you have, any performance anxiety you have, all subtracts into fitness. So the equation is essentially fitness minus fatigue and minus anything else that's gonna negatively affect you equals performance. So when you're testing so often, if the real question is to find out how strong you really are, then you're really not asking that you're not answering that question when you have all these other factors affecting you and you're trying this 1RM attempt. So again, if the goal is to find out how strong you really are, you're not finding that out if you're constantly doing 1RM attempts. So that's the main reason why you shouldn't do 1RM attempts so often. The second big reason that you shouldn't do 1RM attempts so often is the psychological impact it can have on you. Now, this is my second most important one, because for some of you, I can already see the counterpoints coming in is saying, oh, well, it doesn't negatively affect me psychologically. Well, some of you are telling the truth, and then there are some of you who are just not admitting it, that it is negatively affecting you. I don't know anyone who tries a 1RM attempt and doesn't get the weight that they want to try to get and leaves happier after that 1RM attempt. They typically, leave a little bit more upset or sad, or they kind of leave a little bit bummed out from trying that 1RM attempt. So again, the psychological impact that testing so often can have it's not good, you know? And I've experienced this with clients where I have to kind of mentally prep them before they're doing a 1RM attempt, that if you don't get it, don't get upset, you know, because there are a lot of factors that play into getting a 1RM attempt. So the psychological weight that, you know, trying a 1RM attempt so often can kind of be overbearing sometimes, especially for people who kind of wear their heart on their sleeve. You know, for a lot of people who work out, they're coming to the gym because, you know, they had maybe a troubled past or they have insecurity issues. So constantly failing on something, or failing half the time and succeeding half the time, might be too much of an emotional roller coaster for these individuals to be trying 1RMs all the time. And again, kind of compounded with the first, this kind of goes hand in hand with the first point, is that, you know, you might even try a 1RM attempt. Psychologically, it makes you upset, but you're getting upset about something that's not actually expressing your strength. You might actually be as strong as whatever weight you're trying to hit, but you just can't hit it on that day, and then now you're letting it bother you because you didn't get that lift. So again, that's kind of like the second biggest reason, is the psychological impact it can have on consistently trying to get 1RM attempts and then failing at maybe a good chunk of those 1RM attempts. The third reason why you should not try maxing out all the time is just the fact that you're wasting time. The time that it takes to warm up, which you should be warming up, doing rehearsal sets, to a true 1RM attempt, it takes a lot of time. You know, if you're really trying to see how much you can maximally lift, you should have a good long rest before you do that 1RM attempt. And again, that's a lot of time that's wasted in the gym. You could be using that time and effort and kind of driving that to something else that could be getting you more gains in the long run. So again, you could be using that 1RM attempt for maybe a more conservative top set, for more volume work. So if the goal is to get gains, you know, you might just be wasting those gains by trying to get a 1RM attempt that, again, you might not even get because you're in the middle of a hard training block. And the last one, which again is pretty obvious for you, you've probably seen this coming, and I put this last because again, it is obvious, but it's just when you're constantly trying to go for a 1RM, you increase injury risk that much more. Again, you probably won't get injured if you're someone who has good form. I'm not saying doing it all the time you're gonna get injured, but it's just odds. If you have someone who tries 1RM attempts 3, 4, 5 times a year, and you have someone else who tries them every single week, which is 52 times a year, odds are you're more likely to get injured doing a 1RM attempt 50 times a year versus 4 or 5 times a year in comparison to each other. So again, in that sense, you want to prevent injury. And then psychologically, this goes in that if you try a 1RM attempt and you try it so often and then you end up getting injured, then, you know, that's gonna defeat you trying to get a 1RM attempt at all, because you might not be able to work out for a few months. So that's the video. If you guys have any questions, comments, leave them down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.